that's now fixed. All right, I believe we are live now on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Once again, this is Brian Nemhauser. This is the Real Hawk Talk post-game reaction show after the Seattle Seahawks defeated the Philadelphia Eagles by a score of 17-9, which is apparently the only score by which the Seahawks are allowed to beat the Eagles this year. But we'll take whatever score they want to give us, to be totally honest. I believe this is the first time the Seahawks have advanced to the second round of the playoffs in 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, because they lost to Dallas last year. They missed the playoffs the year before, and then the year before that they beat Detroit, right?
Correct. That was the last time they won, 2016 season.
Okay.
So I think it's 3 or 4 years ago.
Feels good.
Yeah, man. The Patriots are out, the Saints are out, and the Seahawks are still in.
Yeah, and oddly enough, I'm sorry, Brian, totally stole your thunder for a second, but
steal away.
I mean, I was kind of talking to you guys, I think, about this on Thursday while I was mildly intoxicated, but it's been a hot minute since the Seahawks have had some playoff success. Like, you know, they didn't go 2 years ago. They lost in super painful fashion to the Cowboys last year. Everybody remembers that game. And then the year before that, they had beat the Lions. But, you know, we were approaching 3 years. This would have been the third year of no playoff victories if they had lost. But thankfully they did. And yeah, I think there's a ton of things we can talk about that was gross and infuriating at times. There's a lot of things they did well too. But at the end of the day, like purely as a fan, this win feels good. It really does.
For the folks that are listening, if we post later, that was Evan Hill at Evan Hill SEA. Is that still your?
Actually, Evan in SEA. We had to make a slight adjustment due to recent events.
Yes. Okay. At Evan in INSEA. Thanks for keeping me on my toes there, Evan. On Twitter. And you also heard the voice of Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Yeah, so guys, there's a lot of fun stuff to cover in this game. And we had some differences of opinions about the game, so that'll be fun to talk about in a win especially. But I mean, the first thing I have to ask you guys, we talked about this a lot before the game. Is the season a success because they won a single playoff game? Is that the bar?
It completely depends on perspective, but I think for the quality of this roster and how they've looked this year, I think a playoff win makes this a successful season. I do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being consistent with what you said before. So that's good. How about you, Jeff? Oh yeah, go ahead, Evan.
No, and I was just gonna say it's not a consistent thing for me year to year, like what defines a successful season. Like if you had told me, you know, the 2014 Seahawks is a playoff win, a successful season. Of course not. Like this roster is depleted, injured, tons of positional holes, a lot of coaching critiques, and they're just decimated on the injury front. So I think a playoff win, even though it's against the Eagles, fuck it, it's a win. It goes down in Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll's win-loss record in the playoffs. So I'll take it.
How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Evan. And I think, to me, the way I view the season is Evan made a good point that really each year you have kind of different perspective based on context. And this year for me, it was kind of like, can the team really move forward from last year? And can the team put the game in the hands of their best player? Because we saw them screw up that playoff game not doing that. And today, they made some dumb second down runs all day. But even that play call at the last play of the game, they put the ball in the hands of their best player. And since the second half of that Philly game, the San Francisco game, we've seen Russell emerge, the guy that we saw earlier in the year where he can take over games. And to me, that's the thing that's going to carry this team in any direction, whether it's the ceiling of this team is based purely on Russell Wilson. And that they let him do his thing. They only scored 17 points, which was definitely frustrating, and a lot had to do with Fletcher Cox and dumb penalties and all kinds of things. But to me, what makes the season successful is really, are they ascending as a franchise? And if they're letting their best player win games for them, which it seems so simple, but they didn't last year. And they didn't in certain situations this year. So if Russ can keep playing like this, they can beat anyone. And as fucked up as the Seahawks are, that's true.
We have to give a shout out to Ben. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Bagamary? He's donated 3 times in 1.5 minutes. Each time he has donated $3 times 3. And his comment is, but what about DK Metcalf's 3-cone drill? Ben, I applaud you. Thank you for your support. Obviously, DK Metcalf had a huge night tonight. I think his game of his rookie year. Do you guys know how many yards he had?
Yeah, let's read it off here, guys. I was looking at some other numbers as well. So DK Metcalf, 7 receptions in 9 targets. Highly efficient. 160 yards.
Wow.
22.9 yards per reception, a touchdown, and a 53-yard catch was his longest. So huge game for DK Metcalf. And I got to say, guys, let me read you Russell Wilson's line. Russell Wilson was 18 of 30, 325 yards, almost 11 yards per throw, 10.8 yards per throw, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, was only sacked 1 time for a passer rating of 108.3. And I got to say, this was, for my money, this was only the 3rd time in Russell's career that he's gone over 300 yards passing in the postseason. The other 2 were at Carolina when they were down like 24-0 at halftime or whatever it was, or 31-0, whatever. That's some crazy score, right? And he had to pass. And the other one was at Atlanta in his rookie year when he had 385 yards passing, when again, they were down by a lot. They weren't down in this game. Russell was good from the jump. And I think arguably that was one of his best playoff games. I
think that was his best playoff game.
You think it was?
Yeah. Given the offensive line injuries, how Fletcher Cox played, and the fact that he was just like that 3rd and 15 run, he did so many cool things in this game. And they only scored 17 points, which is very frustrating. I see where Evan's coming from for sure on that front. But I thought Russell was awesome. That's why I'm so encouraged right now. To me, that is their only chance of making a run, and they can score more points for sure. But I think I can't think of a game where he played better. Carolina's a pretty good one.
Yeah, like the one that they won.
Yeah,
at home.
I think that might have been the best game he's played today, given all the context and what he was dealing with.
Up until now, I would say his Super Bowl against the Patriots was my favorite Russell Wilson.
That's what I was going to say.
Postseason performance.
Yeah, fair. That was awesome.
Speaking of records, somebody commented in the chat, PSP Dice, thank you for the $5 donation. He said, or she said, DK set the NFL record for most yards in a playoff game by a rookie. So that sounds right.
Yeah, it does.
And if it is, that's amazing. Regardless, it's amazing.
I mean, that is the storyline. I asked a question yesterday on Twitter. I said, pick a player not named Quandre Diggs, Russell Wilson, or Jadeveon Clowney. I think were the 3 I said that were off limits. That if they had a good game, it would make you feel confident the Seahawks could go on a run. You want to know the name that came up almost more than anybody else's? DK Metcalf. And
he was awesome.
Those people right now, I mean, everyone's pretty happy, but those people have to be ecstatic because look, he had 6 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown against the 49ers, and they could not stop him at the end of that game. He's now gone against 2 good defenses in a row and been pretty unstoppable. He even had another play. Russell had pressure on him, couldn't hit him. He had another play down the sideline. He was 4 yards behind the DB. Like, he has had 6 catches or more in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the last 9 games. I mean, he's had over 80 yards and at least over 75 yards in a lot of those games. So he is coming on really, really strong. And it wasn't just his receiving. The guy was a blocking machine. Did you see him destroy that guy on David Moore's?
He laid him out. It was amazing. He was a tank.
Love it.
So speaking on that, Josh just sent a note to our group from NFL Research. DK's 160 yards are the most by a rookie in a playoff game in the Super Bowl era.
Wow. I mean, and I think this was his coming out party. I think most of the country has no idea who he is. They heard about him during the combine. He definitely like blew up there. Nobody has been following him throughout the year, other than maybe some fantasy football players that have gotten some good numbers from him. But for the most part, the national media, no one was talking about DK Metcalf before this game. Nobody. They are absolutely going to be talking about him after this game. And you better believe the Packers are like, what are we going to do with this guy? It's a big deal. It's for them to go into that game. And if you're the Packers, are you more worried about Tyler Lockett or are you more worried about DK Metcalf?
I want to say DK Metcalf right now, just because he seems to be Russell's like deep target home run threat of choice right now, just because he's so quick, obviously. Lockett is fast too, but DK in a straight line, can't get much faster.
Well, I mean, isn't that the point, Jeff? Even if it's a question, that's a win.
And I said it Wednesday. I said, you asked what was the one thing I want to see? What was the one thing I saw from the San Francisco game that I thought could carry over? And I answered that with DK and Lockett. And today it was a lot more DK than Lockett, but I thought just something seemed to click with how they were using him and how comfortable they were going to him in big spots. And I thought that was something that could carry over. And I absolutely didn't expect he'd be arguably the best player on the field, non-quarterback. But he was a difference maker all game. From the first play of the game, they ran a 9-yard play to DK. He looked super comfortable. He wasn't nervous. Like A.J. Brown has put up better numbers than him yesterday. I think he had 1 catch for 4 yards. And it's just very exciting. The Seahawks have a guy who can really be like a game-breaking player for this franchise. And they haven't really had that big, strong receiver, really, other than like Sidney Rice, who wasn't built as physically thick as this guy.
And these weren't easy plays. That catch he made for the touchdown, he was wide open, but that was not an easy catch, man. That was a full arm extension, and he managed to pull it in. That's the same play he could not pull in the first time. And he was smart enough to get up and run.
That's what I was going to say. The awareness coming out of college, knowing that in college he's down, and in the NFL he's not down unless he's touched. So pretty cool to see.
Game ball.
And you could say like the Seahawks haven't had, obviously I think we're all in agreement he's a blue chip talent, but he's been a year one contributor more than any other rookie in recent history, maybe outside of Earl Thomas. I don't, maybe not even really.
Tyler Lockett had a pretty good rookie year.
Tyler Lockett did, but he wasn't physically dominant like this guy is.
No. I mean, it is different. I mean, let's go down the list, guys, about some of the performances that really stood out. DK is clearly the top of the list. Russell's right up there with him. Fantastic game for Russ. Before we move over to the other side of the ball, I thought David Moore had a pretty nice game. He only had 2 catches.
2 big plays.
They were 2 big catches, right?
I want to shout out 2 other guys before we talk about Moore. George Fant and Jamarco Jones. I was so scared about that when you wrote Upati was out today. And those guys were seamless out there. All their issues in protection were Fluker and Hunt and Ifedi jumping offside. Jamarco Jones needs to be a starting guard for this team. Every time he's played guard this year, he's been phenomenally comfortable in pass protection. Fan had a really crazy block on one of the outside runs to Homer earlier in the game. I thought those 2 guys were seamless out there. And for that to happen is a huge deal.
I think that's a great call. I mean, what did you guys think about the pass protection overall today?
It seemed pretty good, actually. Russell seemed to have a pocket for most of the day. The only player I'll really shout out as being bad, and I hope you're not listening, but Joey Hunt is getting steamrolled what feels like every week. Ifedi and Fluker both had penalties. I think I saw something on the TV that said Ifedi leads the league in penalties or something like that for offensive players. So the left side played really well, but the right side and Joey Hunt, I think, continue to be problems.
Well, I'm looking right now at.
You know what's weird though, Brian, is the pass pro looked good, but the run blocking looked really bad.
Yeah.
They had no push off the line, nothing. And there were several plays where Travis Homer was caught like in the backfield. Do you remember when Fletcher Cox almost took the handoff from, I think it was Marshawn maybe who was getting the handoff?
It was a play action, yeah.
That was so bad.
That was almost a turnover.
So bad.
They could not stop Cox all day. He destroyed them. I think he's the reason the game was so close.
I agree. And some of the people are going to say, hey, the Eagles lost Brandon Graham for a while, which is true. But I'm looking over the last 4 weeks of the season, pass rush productivity in PFF. And the Eagles' best pass rushers, by this measure at least, have been, let me just double check. It's been, where did it go? Oh, Derek Barnett, Vinny Curry, Josh Sweat. So, I mean, you get pretty far down the list of guys before you even get to Brandon Graham as who's been really effective of late. So, I mean, I think the Eagles have a very good pass rushing team, and the fact that Russell had a pretty good pocket almost all day that was one of the biggest surprises to me, for sure. So that's a great call out, Jeff, of those two guys. We don't know if we're getting Dwayne Brown back next week. If you don't, I mean, I think the Packers pass rush has been at least as good as the Eagles. They've got some guys that have been really effective. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going all over the place, but it's hard for me to stay on topic here. How surprised were you guys that on 3rd and 10, under 2 minutes to go, Eagles have one timeout remaining, that the Seahawks pass the ball near their own goal line? How surprised were you by that?
It's a good question. I expected an inside run to Travis Homer, so I was definitely caught off guard. But you know what this play reminded me of? I don't remember which game it was earlier this year. It was a 3rd down. It was in enemy territory. I don't know if it was the Bengals game. I don't know if it was first game against the Rams. If you guys remember this play, let me know what it was. But it was 3rd down. It was like 3rd down and 10. And Shadi called the pass from Russell to DK in the left corner. Do you guys remember that?
Game.
Oh, that was the Steelers game.
Steelers game.
That, for some reason, that play call reminded me of that play. Just putting your faith in Russell. I wish they had, done it for 3 straight plays, but 1 is better than 0, so I'll take it.
I was shocked, guys, because I was fully expecting 3 runs to burn the timeouts, a punt, and then we were going to sit there and we were going to hold on for dear life against 40-year-old Josh McCown against our defense, and it was just going to be like terrible. It was just going to be horrible. I was shocked when they passed the ball there, and I got to give them credit because I just didn't expect it. And it like you said, Evan, they put the ball in the hands of their best player. Jeff, actually, Chris Collinsworth said before the snap, hey, I'd give it to Russell Wilson. I'd trust him in this situation. I got to be honest. I don't know if I do trust him in that situation. He takes some weird sacks and makes some weird choices. It was great that not only did they make the call, but that Russ pulled it off.
Yeah. I was yelling at the TV before that play, let Russ throw. And it was kind of a weird game because Shadi did a lot of things I did like, and then he consistently did stuff I didn't like all game. We'll get into that a little later. So, it was kind of a weird mix where he was making all the throws on 1st down, and I'm like, okay, they understand their personnel. They're getting progressive. They're not trying to force it. But that play, I thought you had to go for it. I thought you had to go for the win there, and I'm glad they did it. I just think the defense was running on fumes, even it was Josh McCown. It was getting a little too close for comfort. I love the fact that they went for the win, but I was super surprised, especially the length of that deep pass. And when they threw that deep, and I saw Russell drop back and put that height on the ball, my heart dropped. But I'm glad they did it. That's aggressive football. You can't whine about coaching every 2 minutes. They went for the win.
Yeah, I want to thank Colin Lundstrom for his donation and super chat. Really, really appreciate it. We're on our way to making our goal, $20,000 donated again this year to Ben's fund. So really appreciate all the support you guys give. Adding a little bit to the DK Metcalf mystique. So not only was it the most receiving yards by any rookie in playoff history, it was the 5th most receiving yards by any player in their playoff debut. The only guys that have had more yards in their first playoff game were Calvin Johnson, Demaryius Thomas, Vernon Davis, and Raymond Berry. Those are like big names. And yeah, go ahead, Evan.
I wish Nathan was here to hear the Calvin Johnson company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, wow. Just an amazing performance by him. Can we switch over for a second and talk about the defense? Because the defense, it was really painful watching Josh McCown be good against them. I have to say, I thought the defense, generally speaking, played pretty well. Like they there weren't like terrible missed tackles. There was some pass rush. I thought that was the best Jadeveon Clowney has looked since the 49ers game in terms of activity. He even got a sack. Quentin Jefferson had 2 sacks. The Seahawks had 7 sacks, guys. And they should have had more.
I am cautiously optimistic.
That's you have to be.
There's the obvious disclaimer of it was Josh McCown. The Eagles have a completely decimated offense everywhere. Receivers, tight ends, O-line, a lot of folks missing. But they did create some pressure. Clowney, I think, had his best game since the 49ers in Santa Clara. I think Rasheed Green actually had a couple underrated pressures that were pivotal. Quentin Jefferson actually had a nice game. Poona Ford is always doing the dirty work in the trenches. He's somebody I always appreciate. But yeah, Brian, I share your cautious optimism in going into Green Bay next week.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say some things. There's some things I was super excited about, and some things that whatever the opposite of that is. That's what I would say. Overall, as a unit, I agree with both of you. I thought they were very encouraging. I thought their play against Wentz was pretty good before he got hurt. Clowney, especially, to get Clowney back, you just see what a difference that guy makes. Jaron Reed, we had talked about him a lot in the chat. He was my answer to that question you asked.
We need to call out Cody Barton.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Cody.
I'm sorry to jump in on this, but Cody Barton.
That's a great one.
Cody Barton had a fucking day.
I thought he was awesome.
Yeah. This is the preseason hype that we were talking about. Remember when he was like making like diving interceptions and everything, and then Michael Kendricks won the starting spot. And we were like, oh, that's expected, but we really wanted to see the youthful talent. Well, Cody Barton looks like he could be the starter at strong, that Sam spot for next year. He was impressive today.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I would say I agree that Cody Barton played his best game. That I will definitely say.
It's not saying very much.
I thought it's not. The bar is pretty low. I thought his tackling was solid today. There weren't the missed tackles. He had his first sack. Don't know if you guys know that, but he was given credit for a sack. He had a couple passes defensed. I thought his coverage was decent. I think we're going to find when you look at the tape, he was washed out on some run plays again. Like he still struggles a little bit with being big enough in those moments, but and kind of getting through the wash of all those blockers. But it was encouraging for sure. I thought Ugo Amadi early on had some nice plays, good coverage. Last time they played here was Akeem King, who I don't think any of us feel like has a lot of upside. So that was nice to see. Quentin Jefferson ends up with a couple sacks. I thought KJ Wright played one of his best games of the season.
I like Bobby today too.
Yeah, I thought the linebackers in general were active and effective. There were not a lot of missed tackles.
Well, it's just nice Diggs didn't make a lot of flash plays. He wasn't, but it's nice not to just feel completely hopeless out there. And their second half wasn't great, let's be honest. McCown was like 9 for 9 at one point. He was driving. But to not have Lano Hill on the field, that I said that was as much as Diggs coming back was I was excited about. And they just didn't look utterly hopeless at any point. And to me, that's a big change, other than one cornerback. But we'll get into him a little later. But I agree. I thought Reed, Clowney, Jefferson, they were really solid all game. I like that they had kind of a package for Shaquem Griffin. And I thought they were more comfortable in using some nickel and dime defenses.
Ugo Amadi played well in his limited reps.
Yeah, I agree, Evan. And it's interesting. I mean, how many yards do you guys think the Eagles ended up with? I don't know if you know, but if you don't, just guess.
Total offensive, I would say like just shy of 200.
I'd say like 140. Like most of their plays came on PI.
Really? I felt like they were moving the ball up and down. So I was surprised to see 280 yards, 280 yards that they had. They had 100.
I just thought those big PIs were like their whole game.
Yeah, it was only 4.6 yards per play though, which is great. I mean, from a defensive standpoint. Now, the obvious commentary here to make is you're playing 40-year-old Josh McCown with no weapons. You should do even better than they did. So I'm not blind to that, but look, I got to be honest, guys. You heard me pregame and earlier, like I had very little confidence the Seahawks were going to win this game. Not because I thought the Eagles were better, but I just think the Seahawks defense can lose to anybody. I think they're really bad, and they have been really bad and really suspect. And this was a game where even from the jump, even when Wentz was in, the defensive line was active, the coverage was good, the tackling was good. There's energy there that we haven't seen other than the 49ers and the first Eagles game. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see that the defense at least had some life to them. And they won a game without creating a turnover. I don't believe they've done that all year.
2 updates just in real time since I'm reading the Pete Carroll notes. First of all, the Seahawks are locked in for next Sunday at Packers, obviously, 6:40 p.m. Eastern time. So we have the same evening slot. And second of all, Pete Carroll says there are no major injuries or bang-ups. The only thing coming out of this game is Ziggy Ansah with his stinger, but we'll find out more soon. So,
well, we got to say the good and the bad on Ziggy. I mean, the good was I actually thought early on he was affecting the game. He was playing next to Clowney on the inside and was creating some pressure. And then the bad, he got easily outrun by Josh McCown. I mean, that was humiliating.
oof.
I mean,
Yeah.
how slow do you have to be for that to happen? And then you get injured on the play.
That was
That was painful. That was so painful.
If I was
Josh,
him, I think I'd retire after that. I think I'd be done.
There was just a lot of play. Like Jaron Reed couldn't sack Josh McCown, and McCown was like ducking under him. I was actually impressed with McCown overall, but like there are some things in that game that were definitely alarming.
Well, you know what's going to be an interesting story? Like, there's a bunch of storylines we're going to hear about. I don't really care about any of them, but at least it's worth calling out. Everyone's going to say, hey, they beat Josh McCown. Carson Wentz, if he had been in there, they would have won. Maybe. Carson Wentz left. He was 1 for 4 for 3 yards and had been sacked. Josh McCown went 18 for 24 for 174 yards, 7.3 per pass. That isn't exactly like screwing it up. I mean, he wasn't terrible out there. I certainly don't think he was like a huge threat, but I don't think you can point to the quarterback position and say, man, they really blew it in that game. Like,
No, he was good.
I thought he played pretty well.
Wentz, we played him, 5 quarters now? He's been terrible in all 5. So I think that's a lazy excuse.
So let's talk a little bit about the play calling, because this is something that we were going on back and forth about, and I want to give first go at it to Jeff here, and then we'll go to Evan, and I'll go last because I want to make sure you guys get as much time as you need to make your case about how you felt about the play calling for the Seahawks in this game.
Okay, so I said it kind of implied before There was a lot I liked, and there was one area that drove me insane the entire game. And it was, I like that they passed more on first down, and they weren't relying too much on Marshawn establishing the run, stuff like that. But almost every single drive of the game, they wasted a play on second down with an inside Travis Homer run. You can do it once, you can do it twice. I think they did it like 7 or 8 times. And they made it a lot harder on Russell. And throw the ball to him in the flat, throw a screen pass, do something. But running plays at Fletcher Cox against Joey Hunt was just infuriating. And it made things so much harder. And it's probably the biggest reason that this team only had 17 points, because they kept taking plays away from their passing game, which was working pretty effectively. And it's okay if you do it a couple times, kind of set it up things, establish the run, whatever. But they did it almost every single drive. And they had a couple times where Russ bailed them out and some penalties that made it harder. But to me, that was so infuriating. And that was my takeaway at halftime. And they kept doing it. And they didn't score a point in the fourth quarter. And they just can't make those mistakes. They were running the ball right at their best player. And what did they finish with, like 1.8 yards per carry? Other than that Marshawn run and that Homer outside run, the running game was brutal. And they kept sticking with that second down run, and they made things so much harder on their offense. And I thought that was very frustrating by Schottenheimer.
Yeah, it wasn't that they ran the ball. It was the way they ran the ball. So let's start with some high-level stats just to overview. 17 carries for 19 yards. Travis Homer went 11 carries for 12 yards, 1.1 yards per carry. Marshawn Lynch went 6 carries for 7 yards, 1.2 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Russell Wilson was the best runner of the evening. He had 9 carries for 45 yards and a 5-yard average. I saw this posted on Twitter by Ben Baldwin. EPA per play on early down, the 18 rush attempts, almost a negative 0.5 EPA. On dropbacks, it was 0.37. So a pretty significant difference on early downs. But what you were saying, Jeff, is spot on. It's how they were running. It was running Travis Homer on the inside, where he's not exceptionally skilled as a running back in the NFL. He's a player that needs space. I actually think he may have had a run that went for like maybe it was a reception that went for 8 or 9 yards early on the left side early in the game.
That was a run.
That was a run. Okay.
That was the missed field goal drive.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so I think it just reaffirms my belief that, hey, running whatever, what did they choose to run? 18 times this game is fine, but they need to be smarter about how they do it. Travis Homer was getting like 1 yard, getting stuff behind the line of scrimmage, behind Joey Hunt, and Fletcher Cox was absolutely like abusing him back behind there. So I guess my case is this, Brian. It's not that they ran, it's how they ran. And so second of all,
we'll finish your thought, but I want you to sum up, like, are you saying that you feel like the play calling was bad in this game for the Seahawks? And the game plan was bad?
I want to say, because I liked how much they passed, and I thought they were aggressive on it early down. But the whole half of their offense was running the football, and they did it really, really poorly, like really badly. 17 carries for 19 yards is not good. It's abysmal. So take that how you want. I think half their game plan you could throw in the trash.
And Jeff, your summary on that?
My summary on that was overall their game plan was good. It was I didn't like that they took so long to adjust. I think they wasted one play on almost every single drive. And to me, that's not good enough. They created too many third and longs in ways you didn't need to.
Yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind giving me the chance to go through a couple of these series, because I honestly don't know the answer to this, but and we have a nice donation in the super chat. We'll get to that as soon as we're done with this conversation. But first series, 2nd and 1, they run the ball. Do either of you have a problem with a run on 2nd and 1? I mean, is that like
no? That's when you should run the football.
Right, it's a first,
I agree.
Your first
I would have probably put Marshawn in, but
yeah, it's first drive, so you lose yardage. Didn't work out. Fine. Yeah. Next possession, 2nd and 8. It's a pass. Russ scrambles. Second
What was
and
the second
10.
possession?
This is the missed field goal possession.
Yeah.
Next second down. 2nd and 10. They rush Marshawn up the middle. He gets 1 yard. Didn't work.
There's one. Yeah.
Right. So like definitely like bad. But I also feel like, okay, are they learning from that? Like you've run twice on 2nd down in 2 series out of 3 2nd downs. So like, all right. Next possession. 2nd down, 2nd and 7, pass to Marshawn. Next 2nd down, 2nd and 11, pass. Next 2nd down, 2nd and 2, and it's a run for no gain. Like, not great, but that's the point I was getting frustrated. But again, it's not the most crazy thing to run on 2nd and 2.
It's not that they ran, it's how they ran. Travis Homer against Fletcher Cox on Joey Hunt. If you watched Homer last week, outside runs were working all game. And
I'm interested looking back at that too. My recollection is that he had some pretty successful inside runs last week.
It did, but Fletcher Cox versus Joey Hunt is a matchup you should try to avoid.
Totally.
Especially in the run game.
I'm not arguing about
that. That's just my issue. I think it's just bad strategy.
I get that. And I guess I'm just looking at it here. Like the implication I got was, hey, they're just being pig-headed about running the ball on 2nd down over and over again. And if I go through this, so far I'm not seeing that. They get to their next possession, 2nd and 2, another 2nd and short. This time they pass to Tyler Lockett for 13 yards. 2nd and 8, pass. 2nd and 18, pass. 2nd and 19.
Hold on, but there was like a 1st and 20 run in there somewhere in like a.
Right.
There was just all these weird ones.
I guess I'm just saying I'm not seeing the pattern that you guys are in terms of like, it seems to me that they ran early on 2nd and short, learned that it wasn't working, and pretty much went away from it the rest of the time.
Okay, let me chart. We'll talk Wednesday because I felt that was very consistent.
Yeah, I would be interested in looking at that more closely because for the most part, I think that the Seahawks passed on early downs in this game. I thought they had a game plan you guys would love, and it was surprising to me that that was something you guys were frustrated about. It sounds like maybe it was more the runs that they were calling, but it definitely early on sounded like it was just the fact that there was an impression that they were running on 2nd down a lot. And I don't think that that's actually the case. If you compare this game to Dallas last year, I mean, Evan, that game broke you.
Oh, it destroyed me.
I mean, compare this play calling to that play calling.
Yeah, no, it's better. And I'm looking at the game summary posted on Twitter right now. So I'm seeing on early downs. Okay, so 1st and 2nd down, just to clarify for anybody listening, they rushed the ball 18 times and they passed the ball 24 times. And I'm not disputing anything you said. That's just so we have that info.
Yeah, that's helpful. By the way, just coming out now, the Green Bay Packers are early 3.5 to 4 point favorites over the Seahawks.
That's little. That's small.
So as a comparison, the Seahawks were 1.5 point favorites in this game.
Usually the home team gets 3 points just for being home. So that means they're pretty much even.
Yeah. So let me get to the super chat piece here. Keith Stone, thank you for your donation. Really appreciate it. He's asking, should I go to Green Bay? It's like a 2-hour drive from home. They lost when I went to the Baltimore home game. I don't know what. Oh, the Baltimore.
The
home
one
game.
I went to.
The one
I went to.
What do you guys think? How assuming Keith is asking because he wants to know whether at least it's going to be a good game and if the Seahawks have a chance to win. What's your initial impression? Evan, how do you feel about the Seahawks' chances in this game against the Packers?
Yeah, I'm most intimidated by Lambeau Field just because historically the Seahawks haven't had success there. I think current weather forecast actually looks like there will not be precipitation. It will be a 10% chance of precipitation, so snow or rain on Sunday. That is good news because Russell Wilson and this offense plays really bad in the rain. It artificially limits them. So I'm worried about the environment. It's a hostile environment, but I'm not that afraid of this Packers team. Aaron Rodgers was like a Pro Bowl alternate or whatever, but has had like a really, really bad year. He's been the worst part of their offense, like the MVP of their offense, has easily been Aaron Jones. Aaron Rodgers, basically the other Aaron of the offense. Aaron Rodgers has been a complete liability for them all year long. They have Devontae Adams, but after that, they basically have nobody at receiver, so they're not confident in them. It's really the Packers defense that has been their strong point throughout the year. They're the strong part of their team. So this Seahawks team, this is Pete Carroll standard. We play to the level of our opponent, for better or for worse. We can beat anybody, we can lose to anybody. And I truly believe that is true for this team. If you live 2 hours away, I actually just pulled up tickets real quick to see how much they look like. You could get upper bowl tickets with fees for like $240 a pop, which if you're used to Seattle.
If you have not been to a Packers game, you gotta go. Lambeau's awesome. I've been there. Admittedly, I was there during the late summer, so it was nice and 70 degrees, and the pregame, the tailgating was great. It's just a great place to watch a football game. We had a lot of fun, even though the Seahawks lost that game. To see a playoff game there, I mean, I think that's something that if you have the ability to do it, that's a memory you're gonna always have. So I definitely would.
What airport do you fly into?
Usually in Milwaukee.
Okay. And that's like an hour away from?
A couple hours.
Oh, wow. So you got to fly. Okay. And then drive over.
Yeah. It's not easy to get to Green Bay.
Yeah. I went there in the summer too once. I'll say this. They are the nicest fans to opponents of any stadium you'll go to. That's like Packers fans thing. They're just overall, they treat the opponents very differently than like San Francisco fans. I don't love going to road games personally. I prefer to watch on TV. It's going to be another NBC game, but if you're 2 hours away and you can get tickets, to me, it all depends on what the temperature will be. If you're going to be in like ice cold conditions, I'd rather sit on my warm couch and watch replays. But if it's like doable and you can get tickets for a good price, it's a pretty hard experience to pass up. Evan broke down the Packers pretty well. They're kind of like the Seahawks, like long lost cousins this year. Like their point differential is terrible. They have parts of their team that don't make any sense. They should not have been like an 11 or 12 win team, whatever they were. They should have lost to like Detroit twice this year. They had to like edge by their like fifth string quarterback in the last game to even get a bye. They're a weird team that like, and if you look at their advanced metrics, they don't look like they're like a 9-win team based on like Pythagorean wins or whatever that's called. But they have some very good defensive players. The opposite of the Seahawks is their quarterback hasn't been playing well and their pass rush has been very good. But they're one of those teams that's not as good as their record and they're beatable. Like David Blau almost beat them to steal their bye. But yeah, if you can go to Lambeau Field, it's a 2-hour drive and you don't have to fly into Milwaukee, I think you got to do that.
And Keith said he's doing it. So good on you, Keith.
So
enjoy. And look, I think I really enjoyed my time going to Lambeau. Great place to watch a game, and the fans were pretty funny. So we had a good time. But look, the Seahawks. As I'm looking through here, there's some folks that are asking about Al Woods and whether he's coming back. One more game. So he was a 4-game suspension. The Seahawks have now played 3 games. If the Seahawks can get by the Packers, they would regain Al Woods. And
you know what's crazy? The Seahawks could host the NFC Championship.
Tell us, Jeff, how would that happen?
We're gonna know. The first game of next weekend is Minnesota at San Francisco. Minnesota won at New Orleans today, which I didn't give them any chance of winning. I gave them 0. I thought New Orleans was going to run through the NFC. I truly did. And if Minnesota can pull off a win in San Francisco, which seems crazy, let's be honest, but they won today, so it's possible. And if the Seahawks win next week, the Seahawks are hosting the NFC Championship.
Yeah. You guys, I'm sorry to jump in real quick. Can you guys believe the Saints lost today?
It's crazy.
No.
Like, Brian, remember, like entering the playoffs, Brian, you were like, they might be the best NFC team. And I'm not disputing that. I would get more specific and say, I think they're the worst matchup for the Seahawks in the NFC, assuming they were still around.
That was the one team I was having a really hard time envisioning the Seahawks beating. They're going to have to play in New Orleans, and given the state of this defense, I was just like, I don't know how Drew Brees isn't going to put up like 35, 40 points on this defense. And it's just hard to imagine the Seahawks playing well enough to win that game. The Vikings, their defensive line dominated that game. And that's a good Saints offensive line. You know who doesn't have a good pass protecting offensive line?
San Francisco.
The 49ers. 49ers have been giving up sacks over and over again of late. I think that the I don't know what the line is if you guys want to look it up. I'm guessing the 49ers are probably 6 points favorites or so. 49ers should win that game going away, I think. But would it shock me if the Vikings hit the crap out of Jimmy Garoppolo, force the Jimmy turnovers that we've seen so often, and something silly happens in that game? Wouldn't shock me. You know what else wouldn't shock me is if this ridiculous Seahawks team, and it's a ridiculous team. Let's just be honest about that. If their path to the Super Bowl was beating the Eagles, the Packers, and the Vikings, that nothing would make more sense in this season than that being the path to the Super Bowl for this Seahawks team.
Jacob Hollister going down at the 1 yard line could be the best thing that ever happened to the Seahawks.
I think Josh Cashman, I think, absolutely nailed it. Remember the Jack Sparrow scene where in the very first movie where he's jumping off and landing on the dock from the boat and it's sinking and he takes his final step on the dock? It's kind of what the Seahawks team is.
If the Seahawks win that game last week, they got to play home to Minnesota, which last week I thought was pretty easy, but who knows? And then they would have had to play at New Orleans. And then if they won, they would have had to play at San Francisco. This path is way better.
Do you think that this Seahawks team would have beaten that Vikings team today if they had played at home against them?
No.
I don't think so. No.
It's hard. It's hard to say. I will say for sure I would have felt less confident about their ability to win that game than about how if they played the exact same way. Look, I think that Vikings team really showed up today defensively. They looked really good, and they had Dalvin Cook running well. I think find a way to win one more game, and you're almost certain to get Dwayne Brown back. He may be back this week. I don't know, but you'll definitely would get Al Woods back. People are like, who cares? He's Al Woods. He matters. He matters, and so who knows? Who knows with this team? So, what do you guys think? Just preview a little bit for the Packers game. What you guys know of the Packers? What do you feel best about going into that game, and what do you feel most concerned about? Let's start with you, Evan.
I'm actually going to bounce it to Jeff while I pull up some stats real quick.
All right, go for it, Jeff.
I'll say what I'm worried about the most is the Seahawks' ability to contain Aaron Jones.
Yep.
They struggle in run defense. They haven't been great against running backs in the passing game. Miles Sanders had some pretty cool plays today. This guy is worlds better. And I guess the other scary part would just be blocking Preston and Zadarius Smith. Their pass pro has been up and down all year, and blocking those guys in Lambeau Field is going to be hard. It's amazing I don't even say Aaron Rodgers anymore.
Yeah, nor should you. I mean, he has not been the best part of that team. I'm looking quickly at. I mean, the guy that really gives me concern is Zadarius Smith. I think they've got a really dominant pass rusher in Zadarius Smith. The Seahawks really haven't faced that much. I mean, you could say Nick Bosa is someone that's on that list, and they have obviously had some big pass rushers they've gone against. But you've got Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, and I think they're both over 13 sacks. I think Zadarius Smith had 16 on the year or something like that. So
he's a beast, man.
He's really good. He's like Jadeveon Clowney was against the 49ers on a regular basis. He's pretty good. But if you look at if you look at the guys that they put in coverage, I think that's where their weakness might be. And I guess we'll find out. Maybe not. I'm looking right now at their grades there. Not bad. So I don't know. I'm really curious. The way the Seahawks pass protected today, you got a chance. Who's the guy? Trying to look really quickly. Who's the guy that's had the biggest problem in coverage?
They have Kevin King. They have Jair Alexander.
Yeah, Josh Jackson, although I don't think he plays much.
Packers really haven't played one great game this whole season.
What's that?
Like, look, I'm just looking at the Packers like schedule. They have not played a great game all season.
Well, and I think that they've had really good pass protection at the edges.
I think they're the best pass protecting team in the NFL. And I know Ben likes to tweet that out a lot when he talks about Aaron Rodgers.
They do have a weak guard in Billy Turner. And that's about it. But yeah, like, look, the Seahawks have tortured the Packers in the playoffs under Pete Carroll. I think if you're a Packers fan, you probably are happy to face the Seahawks, but I mean, you got to at least be a little bit concerned to see Russell Wilson walk into your stadium.
Oh, especially if there's no precipitation. Like if you're a Packers fan, do not look past this game. I will say you will probably win right now, but if Russell Wilson gets hot, he's going to teabag you. And he's just gonna do dirty things to your football team's defense. That's just the reality. That's just the truth.
Evan, I have to get a comment from you about their tight end.
Oh, wait, what's his name?
Jimmy Graham.
Oh, he's not a threat. I mean, like I said, they have Devontae Adams and then nobody else.
Aren't you kind of looking forward to getting a little Jimmy Graham time?
Yeah,
like a little Quandre Diggs.
I want a Quandre Diggs like on Gronk to the chest hit, but to Jimmy Graham. That's what I want.
Yeah. All right, fellas. We got one more question in the super chat here. Thank you, Russell Solberg, for it. He wants to ask, will Ifedi be a starter on any roster next season?
I'll take that one. Yes, and he'll be paid more than $12 million a year to do it.
Mark in Seattle.
No.
I hope not. Please don't sign him.
No. There's a zero chance now. Zero chance.
You can't teach the stuff he does wrong. You can't fix that stuff. There's just, in every sport you've watched or played, there's just one guy who has the lowest IQ in the sport and just makes those mistakes time and time again. Even when I played like house league sports, that's Ifedi. He's super talented, but I don't think you can fix two different O-line coaches, three different positions. The mistakes he makes are unfixable.
The reality of the positional market, though, is that right tackle is like super bloated.
Oh, he'll get paid.
Yeah. Let's be clear about that. He's going to get paid. Mediocre right tackles are getting paid buco bucks, like $12, $13, $14 million a year. Trent Brown for the Raiders right tackle is like, I think at $18.5 million a year right now. So I think some team will take a shot on him and be like, he's young. He was drafted high. Draft status actually does matter, as stupid as it is. And somebody's just going to,
someone like the Redskins are going to pay him like $12 million a year.
I can see John Elway doing it.
Yeah, like someone like that. Like, he's such a perfect fit for like a 6-10 team.
I love that, Jeff. One last thing I got to say, unless you guys have others, but I got to find it really quickly. But my recollection is Seahawks Packers playoff games have almost all been classics. I'm thinking back to, let me pull them up real quick. You've got the Matt Hasselbeck, we'll take the ball and we're going to score game, right? You've got the NFC Championship game where the Seahawks came back from, crazy to win that. And then let me see. The other, sorry, Siri, I wasn't talking to you. And then the other one, so 2 of the 3 games in the playoffs between the Seahawks and Packers have gone to overtime. And then the other one, they did get their asses kicked. So that wasn't really a classic. The Seahawks went out in front in that game early. I think it was like 14-0.
14-0. I remember that game.
I want to say Lofa Tatupu had like a fumble recovery or an interception or something. And then it was just all Packers from there. So there was one that wasn't good, but in general, these games are memorable for sure. So looking forward to that. With that, fellas, I think we are going to call that a wrap. A really, really big win for the Seahawks. Do you guys want to have one final word and your takeaways before we head out? We'll start with you, Jeff.
Overall, just a lot to be encouraged about. It's cool they won a playoff game. I really want to beat the Packers. I hate Aaron Rodgers. I saw like Aaron Nagler, one of our first show guests, just be like, they're talking about the Seahawks team as if they're a breeze. So that really irritated me. I really want to win this game more than anything. Let's go. Let's keep the season going.
Evan?
Yeah, enjoy the playoff victory. It's been a few years. Some things to be encouraged about, some things to complain about too. But overall, I think, our biggest competitive edge is we have Russell Wilson at quarterback, and the Russell Wilson that showed up today in week 17 shows up next week on Sunday night. We're going to be in for a thriller. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Most important player on the Seahawks is Russell Wilson. No one will ever argue that. He's played 2 of arguably his best games of the season back to back. He seems to have found some rhythm. He's now got 2 healthy targets in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett that are giving teams trouble. DK Metcalf is playing his best ball of the season. We may or may not get back our starting left tackle next week, which would be a very big deal. And a number of the Seahawks defenders that have not been doing much of late looked better. And we had Quandre Diggs back this week. I think you can only expect that ankle he was playing on to feel even better next week. So, man, it's fun. It's fun that they got another week. I will tell you, it shocked me. I really was expecting the worst today, and really, really, really happy that I was wrong. So let's get back together this week for the pod previewing the Packers game. We'll get to you with the schedule for that soon. And if you haven't already, please sign up over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Support the show, support Ben's Fund. Subscribe here on YouTube. We crossed the 4,000 mark on subscribers. We've doubled year over year again, which we really appreciate. You'll get notified if any cool videos get posted, not only the podcasts, but whether Will at Rain City Series or Josh, Cable Thanos, post anything this week, you'll be the first to know. And give us a like, a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all that stuff. With that, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Go Hawks.